Adebayo had never seen a city shine like Seoul. Even the night seemed alive here, neon and glass pulsing with confidence. But tonight, her suitcase wheels rattled too loudly on the marble floor of the Kim family penthouse, a place so quiet she could hear her heartbeat echo. "Make yourself at home," Hae-rin had said before running off to a last-minute charity dinner. Easy for her to say. Tosin felt like she'd stepped into a magazine. Every corner white and gold, every object screaming expensive. She dropped her coat on the couch and exhaled, muttering, "Just 3 days, Tosin. Be grateful and stay invisible." But the universe had other plans. The elevator chimed. Footsteps, measured, heavy, deliberate, approached from the hallway. Tosin turned just as a tall man stepped into the room. Kim Seon-woo. She knew him from Hae-rin's stories, the cold, brilliant younger brother who could make grown executives tremble with one look. He was even more striking in person, dark hair slicked back, suit sharp enough to cut through air, eyes unreadable and glacial. Their gazes locked. For a second, time forgot how to move. Then his voice broke the silence. "Who are you?" His tone wasn't curious, it was territorial. Tosin straightened her shoulders, forcing a polite smile. "Tosin Adebayo, your sister's friend. I'll be staying here a few days." He didn't blink. "Without my permission." She raised an eyebrow. "Do I need a visa for your living room?" The corner of his mouth twitched. Amused Tosin meant. Annoyance, maybe both. "I don't like strangers in my house." "Good thing I'm not a stranger to your sister," she said, matching his calm with a smile that bordered on defiance. For the first time, Seon-woo really looked at her. The boldness, the warmth, the way her honey-brown skin caught the low light like something alive. He hated how it disarmed him. "Stay out of my way," he said finally, brushing past her toward the bar counter. The faint scent of cedar and cologne lingered in the air. Tosin's lips parted, caught between irritation and fascination. She hadn't met many men who could command a room without raising their voice. From the corner of her eye, she watched him loosen his tie and pour a drink, movements precise, practiced, frustratingly elegant. "Nice hospitality," she murmured. "Don't expect any," he replied without turning. And yet, when she brushed past him to reach for a glass of water, his hand accidentally brushed hers. The contact, barely a second, sent a current neither could deny. Her breath hitched. His jaw tightened. It was just a touch, but in that charged silence, something unspoken began. A dangerous rhythm between two people who had no business feeling what they did. Tosin looked away first. "Good night, Mr. Kim. Welcome to Munlyt Stories, where moonlight meets myth. Love timeless tales, then hit like, subscribe, and join the circle. Every story begins with you." Seon-woo watched her leave, his reflection caught in the mirrored glass. He didn't believe in distractions. But tonight, one had just moved into his house. The sun spilled over Gangnam like liquid gold, catching the edges of the skyscrapers that framed the Kim penthouse. Inside, the quiet hum of the espresso machine filled the air. Kim Seon-woo believed mornings were sacred, predictable, controlled, uninterrupted. Until today, barefoot, hair wrapped in a silk scarf, Tosin Adebayo stood in his kitchen humming softly to Burna Boy as she flipped pancakes. She moved with casual grace, hips swaying lightly, lips curved in a rhythm that did not belong in this cold, orderly space. Seon-woo froze at the sight. For someone who had built his life on precision, she was chaos disguised as sunlight. His voice sliced through the music. "You're using my imported maple syrup." Tosin jumped, almost dropping the spatula. "You scared me." He leaned against the counter, arms folded. "This is not a cafe. My kitchen has rules." She turned to face him fully, eyebrow raised. "Rules like what?" "No joy allowed before 9 a.m. Seon-woo's gaze trailed over her. Oversized hoodie, bare feet, the steam curling around her like morning perfume. He cleared his throat. "Rule 1. Do not touch anything that isn't yours. Rule 2. Silence is preferred before work. Rule 3. Rule 3, she interrupted, flipping a pancake. You eat what I cook and thank me later." He blinked. No one had ever interrupted him mid-sentence. Not employees. Not board members. Certainly not his sister's friend. Tosin slid a plate toward him. "Breakfast, CEO Nim." Her tone was teasing, but her eyes, Those warm, knowing eyes challenged him. He hesitated, then picked up the fork. One bite. He didn't mean to close his eyes, but he did. It tasted good. Too good. Tosin smirked. I'll take that as approval. He opened his eyes slowly. Don't make this a habit. No promises. She winked and turned back to the stove. He watched her in silence, fighting the pull he refused to name. Everything about her was wrong for his world. Too bold, too emotional, too unpredictable. But she fit in his kitchen like she'd been there forever. As he reached for his tablet, she said casually, Your sister called. She's staying another week in Busan. Si-in-woo looked up sharply. Another week? She said, pouring coffee. Looks like you're stuck with me, boss man. The words rolled off her tongue like a dare. For a heartbeat, the room thickened with something heavy charged. Her gaze lingered just a second too long on his mouth. His fingers brushed hers again when she handed him the mug, and neither moved away this time. Heat. Silence. The hum of the city below. Then Si-in-woo spoke, his voice low. If you're staying, learn my rules. Tosin smiled, lips curved, eyes soft but unafraid. Or maybe, Mr. Kim, you'll learn mine. He didn't answer. He just watched her walk away, bare feet, quiet defiance. And for the first time in years, his morning routine didn't feel like control. It felt like trouble. By noon, the air inside Hansang Group's glass tower was thick with tension. Meetings ran like clockwork under Kim Si-in-woo's rule, precise, ruthless, efficient. But even from his corner office, his mind refused to stay on the numbers before him. It kept wandering back to the woman who had invaded his home and his order. Tosin Adebayo. She had said she was just a consultant, helping Haerin with a marketing pitch. What she didn't say was that the pitch was for him. When the elevator doors opened, Tosin stepped out, every inch of her transformed. Gone were the soft hoodies and teasing smiles. In their place, a fitted white blouse tucked into black trousers, her sleek bun neat and deliberate, her posture radiating quiet command. The murmurs began before she even reached the boardroom. Who's that? One assistant whispered. New marketing hire, another guest. Si-in-woo looked up from his tablet, startled despite himself. For a moment, he simply stared. She smiled, professional, polite, distant. Mr. Kim. He straightened in his chair. Miss Adebayo, I wasn't aware you'd be joining this meeting. Your sister sent me in her place, she said smoothly. She said it was urgent. Haerin. Always a step ahead. Tosin handed out her proposal decks with practiced grace. Her voice flowed, calm, confident, persuasive, as she explained a campaign designed to humanize Hansang's image to global audiences. By the time she finished, even Si-in-woo's stone facade had cracked slightly. Her ideas were bold, refreshing, dangerous. When the others filed out, he spoke without looking up. Stay. Tosin hesitated, then closed the door behind her. He leaned back, eyes fixed on her. You're good. Too good. I take that as a compliment. It wasn't meant as one, he said, though the corner of his mouth betrayed him. Tosin crossed her arms, her tone soft but steady. You can intimidate your staff, Mr. Kim, but I don't scare easily. He rose, walking toward her until the space between them was charged, intimate. You should, because working this closely with me means contracts, clauses, and consequences. Her chin lifted. Then draw them up. He stopped inches from her, his cologne faint but intoxicating. You don't understand what that means. Try me. The challenge hung between them like smoke. He turned to his desk, grabbed a folder, and slid it toward her. A formal consulting contract. Sign it, and you'll work under me directly for the next 6 weeks. Her eyes flicked up. Under you. His gaze held hers. Exactly. Silence pulsed. Her hand brushed his as she took the pen. For a second, neither moved. Then she signed, bold, fluid, final. Si-in-woo exhaled quietly, though the air around him felt heavier now. Welcome to Hansang, Miss Adebayo. Tosin met his eyes, the faintest curve touching her lips. Thank you, Mr. Kim. I hope you're ready for what you started. He wasn't. Not even close. Rain fell over Seoul in silver streaks, painting the city in reflections of neon and glass. Inside Hansang Group's tower, the workday had ended hours ago, but Kim Si-in-woo's office still glowed. He stood by the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled, eyes tracing the horizon. A man who controlled everything except the storm brewing inside him. And that storm had a name. Tosin Adebayo. For 6 days, she'd been at his side, in meetings, presentations, strategy calls, confident, composed, and completely immune to his usual intimidation. Her laughter carried through the halls like defiance. Her ideas challenged his authority with quiet fire. He hated it. He needed it. When the final report was done, she packed her tablet and glanced at the clock. "You're working late again?" He didn't turn. "I always do." "Maybe that's why you look like you argue with your reflection every morning," she teased. His head snapped slightly, surprise flickering across his face before he smirked. "You're getting bold, Miss Adebayo. Or maybe you're getting predictable, Mr. Kim." He couldn't help it. The laugh that escaped him was low and genuine. "Go home before you start a war you can't win." She shrugged, walking toward the elevator. "I already did. It's called working here." The doors slid shut behind them both. Then a sudden jolt. The lights flickered, the elevator shuddered, and everything went still. Tosin grabbed the rail. "Wait, what just happened?" Sian-Woo pressed the emergency button. Nothing. The panel was dark. "Power outage," he muttered, voice calm but tight. "Backup should kick in soon." Minutes passed. The air grew warmer. Silence filled the small space, the kind of silence that listens to heartbeats. Tosin exhaled softly. "You don't like being trapped, do you?" He looked at her. "Do you?" She smiled faintly, her nerves showing in the tremor of her fingers. "Depends on the company." The faint glow from her phone cast her face in soft gold. Sweat glistened at her temple. He noticed everything. The curve of her neck, the rise and fall of her chest, the calm she pretended to hold. "You're staring," she said quietly. He didn't deny it. "You make it difficult not to." Her breath hitched. "That's very unprofessional. So is challenging your boss in every meeting." Their gazes clashed, hot, unyielding. The hum of the stalled elevator seemed to fade until there was only the sound of their breathing. Tosin looked away first, murmuring, "You think control is power, but maybe you're just afraid of what happens when you lose it." His jaw tightened. "And you think chaos is freedom, but maybe you're just hiding behind it." Lightning flashed outside the tiny glass strip above them. The silence that followed felt electric. When the lights flickered back on, they were standing too close, her hand still on the rail, his fingers inches from hers. Neither moved. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding. She stepped out first, voice barely steady. "Good night, Mr. Kim." He watched her walk away, pulse steady, breath uneven. Control, he realized, had just left with her. By the time evening arrived, Seoul's skyline burned gold. The rain had stopped, but inside Kim Sian-Woo's chest, the storm hadn't. He sat at his desk, unread messages piling up, his thoughts circling one name like a secret he couldn't silence. Tosin Adebayo. He told himself it was professionalism, curiosity about her work ethic, her unusual insight, her ability to challenge him without fear. But deep down he knew better. The elevator had changed something. He could still feel the warmth of her skin near his. A soft knock broke his thoughts. "Come in." Tosin stepped inside, wrapped in a cream blazer and slim black dress that framed her figure like poetry. Her hair, a sleek bun, her signature, gleamed under the light. "Hey, Rin asked me to drop this off," she said, placing a folder on his desk. "She's reviewing the Busan branch proposal." Sian-Woo nodded, forcing composure. "Thank you." She turned to leave. He spoke before he could stop himself. "Have you eaten?" Tosin blinked. "Not yet." "You?" No, a pause. "Join me." Her brow arched slightly. "You're inviting me to dinner?" He leaned back, eyes steady. "Consider it a working meal." Her lips curved, half amusement, half intrigue. "Working meal, huh? Fine." They ended up at Beijing, a quiet rooftop restaurant overlooking the Han River. Lanterns glowed like captured stars. The table between them gleamed with glass and silver, but it was the silence that held more weight than anything on the menu. "So," Tosin said, finally breaking it, "do you ever stop thinking about work?" He looked at her, something softer in his gaze tonight. "Sometimes." "When?" "When I'm trying not to think about you." The air stilled. Tosin froze, caught between disbelief and something that made her heartbeat trip. That's dangerous talk, Mr. Kim. I don't do danger, he said, his voice low. I calculate risk. And what's your calculation now? She asked, eyes locked on his. That you're a risk worth taking. The waiter arrived with grilled beef and wine, breaking the moment. Tosin busied herself pouring drinks, though her hands weren't as steady as usual. You're not what I expected, she said softly. Cold. Controlled, she corrected, but not unfeeling. You pretend you don't care, but you notice everything. He leaned in slightly. What do you notice about me? That you're staring again. He didn't look away. Can you blame me? Her breath caught. The river shimmered behind her, the city lights painting her skin with gold. Something unspoken passed between them. Not words, not reason, just heat. When the waiter left, Sian-woo's hand brushed hers again. This time, she didn't pull back. Tell me to stop, he said quietly. Tosin met his eyes. If I wanted you to stop, I wouldn't be here. His pulse jumped. For a man who lived by rules, that was all it took to break every one of them. The night air over the Han River carried a soft chill, but inside the car, the heat between them was thick enough to bend silence. Kim Sian-woo kept his eyes on the road, jaw tight, fingers gripping the steering wheel harder than necessary. Tosin sat beside him, watching the city lights flicker across his profile, a man trying to bury desire beneath discipline. Neither spoke, until he pulled up in front of the penthouse. Thank you for dinner, she said, voice calm but threaded with something she couldn't quite disguise. He nodded once, but didn't move to open his door. The seconds stretched. Rain began again, tapping gently on the windshield. Tosin! She turned, the sound of her name and his voice catching her off guard. He looked at her, really looked, the confidence, the softness, the way she made even silence feel like a conversation. This, whatever it is between us, it shouldn't happen. Because of your rules. Because it's my job to keep boundaries. Her smile was faint. Then why do you keep crossing them? He exhaled, the ghost of a laugh escaping. Maybe I like seeing what happens when I do. Lightning flashed behind the glass, washing his face in silver light. For a heartbeat, the city disappeared, leaving just the two of them in the small, charged space. Tosin reached for the door handle, then hesitated. Good night, Mr. Kim. He caught her wrist, gently, but firmly enough that she felt the question in his touch. Stay for a moment. Her breath hitched. When she finally faced him, their eyes met, hers calm but curious, his dark and searching. He didn't move closer, but the air between them shifted, alive with things neither could say. You don't trust yourself around me, she said quietly. He gave a small, bitter smile. You're assuming I ever did? Rain rolled down the windows like falling glass. He released her hand slowly, the warmth of her skin lingering on his fingers. Go inside, he said softly, before I forget who I'm supposed to be. Tosin nodded, opening the door. But before stepping out, she looked back, the kind of look that says everything polite words can't. You know, Sian-woo, sometimes control is just fear wearing a suit. He didn't answer. Couldn't. She disappeared into the elevator, leaving him in the car, pulse unsteady, every nerve alive. Upstairs, Tosin leaned against her door, exhaling deeply. The reflection in the mirror caught her flushed cheeks, her trembling hands. She whispered to herself, "This is getting dangerous." But even as she said it, her lips curved in a helpless smile. Downstairs, Sian-woo stood by the window, watching the lights of her room flick on. For once, the city looked too quiet, too far away. He loosened his tie and murmured under his breath, almost like a confession, "I think I've already crossed the line." Hae-rin Kim's heels clicked sharply across the marble foyer as she entered the penthouse, her voice already bright with energy. "Sian-woo! Tosin! I'm home!" Her return from Busan was supposed to bring calm, but instead it set every hidden feeling trembling. Tosin froze halfway through pouring tea, the cup rattling against the saucer. For a week, the house had been their quiet battlefield, stolen glances in the kitchen, unspoken electricity at dinner, the memory of rain and touch still humming between them. Now his sister was back. Sian-woo appeared from the hall, every inch the polished CO again. Crisp shirt, distant expression, voice steady. "You're early." Business wrapped faster than expected, Hayron said, hugging him before turning to Tosin with a grin. And you, my favorite house guest. Did my brother behave? Tosin smiled quickly, praying her heartbeat wasn't visible. Perfectly. Impossible, Hayron teased, then studied her more closely. You look different. Happier. Tosin laughed it off. Soul's air does that to people. But Hayron's eyes lingered a second too long, sharp, knowing. The woman didn't build an empire of charities and connections without reading people. Later that evening, the three of them sat for dinner. The air was polite, almost too careful. Hayron chatted about her trip, but her gaze kept sliding between them. Tosin's hands were steady as she lifted her glass, yet Sian-Woo's silence was louder than any conversation. Sian-Woo, Hayron said lightly, I ran into your operations team in Busan. They said your mood's improved lately. He looked up, wary. Did they? Yes, she said, swirling her wine. They think maybe someone's finally softening you. Her tone was playful, but her eyes glinted with curiosity. Tosin nearly choked on her drink. Maybe it's the new marketing strategy, she offered quickly. Maybe, Hayron mused, smiling. But my brother doesn't change for business. Silence pressed between them. Sian-Woo's gaze flicked to Tosin for just a heartbeat. Too brief for anyone else, too loud for her. When dinner ended, Tosin excused herself to the balcony. The Seoul skyline stretched before her, bright and endless. She gripped the rail, forcing her thoughts to settle. She heard footsteps behind her. Hayron joined her, arms folded, eyes on the night. You know, my brother doesn't let people close easily. Not even me. Tosin's pulse quickened. I've noticed. So when someone walks in and suddenly he's staying home more, smiling more, I can't help but wonder. Tosin met her gaze. Wonder what? That maybe my best friend and my brother are walking a line neither should cross. The words hit like cold water. Tosin searched for something to say, but nothing came. Hayron sighed, softer now. You're both adults. Just remember, feelings in this family come with consequences. She left quietly, heels fading down the hall. Inside, Sian-Woo stood behind the glass doors, watching them. His reflection looked calm, but his heart beat hard against his ribs. He knew his sister had seen what they both tried to hide, and for the first time, Kim Sian-Woo feared the truth might destroy more than just control. It might destroy them both. That night, the rain returned, gentle, almost hesitant, as if Seoul itself was holding its breath. Tosin couldn't sleep. Hayron's words looped in her head, heavy and sharp. Feelings in this family come with consequences. She paced her room, trying to silence her thoughts. She had promised herself not to fall, not here, not for him. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Sian-Woo, the curve of his mouth when he almost smiled, the quiet way he said her name like it wasn't supposed to exist on his tongue. A soft knock came at her door. Tosin! His voice. Low. Controlled. Dangerous. She hesitated, heart racing. Come in. The door opened, and there he was, still in his white shirt, sleeves rolled, hair slightly damp from the rain. The sight alone stole the air from her lungs. I heard what my sister said, he began, his tone calm but strained. I don't want you to think she was wrong. Tosin's breath caught. You mean about us? He nodded once. About there being an us. She looked away, crossing her arms like she could shield herself from the truth. You're making it sound like a mistake. Maybe it is. He took a step closer, but it doesn't feel like one. The silence between them thickened, electric, trembling, real. She could hear the rain on the window, the faint hum of the city below, the sound of her own heartbeat running wild. You should go, she whispered, though her voice wavered. I've been trying, he said softly, every night since the elevator. Her eyes lifted to his, and that was all it took. The space between them vanished. His hand found her cheek, the touch feather-light, reverent. She didn't move away. She leaned in. Sian-Woo. He swallowed hard, eyes searching hers. Tell me not to. She didn't. And then he kissed her. It wasn't tentative. It was years of restraint unraveling in a single breath. His lips claimed hers with quiet hunger, his hand sliding to the back of her neck, pulling her closer until there was no space left to lie about what they wanted. The world outside disappeared. There was only the warmth of his mouth, the rush of her pulse, the sharp ache of something too right to be allowed. When they finally broke apart, their foreheads stayed touching. Her voice trembled. "This can't happen again." He smiled faintly, his breath still rough. "Then why are you still holding me?" She realized her hands were still gripping his shirt, knuckles white. Slowly, she let go, stepping back as reality returned like cold air. Xian Wu exhaled. "I'll fix this," he said quietly. "Whatever it takes." But Tosin knew there was no fixing what had already begun. Some fires, once lit, refused to burn out. Morning light poured into the Kim penthouse, soft and golden, too calm for the storm that lingered inside. Tosin sat at the dining table, hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched. Her lips still remembered him. Her body still betrayed her with every heartbeat. The knock on her door the night before hadn't just broken boundaries, it had shattered her peace. She looked up as Xian Wu entered, crisp in his navy suit, tie perfectly aligned, the picture of control. If not for the faint shadow under his eyes, no one would guess the CEO had spent half the night standing outside her room, forcing himself not to knock again. "Good morning," she said, her voice steady but too soft. He paused, taking in the sight of her, hair still tied in her sleek bun, skin glowing under the sunlight. "Morning." The single word carried weight. Silence followed, thick and fragile. He poured himself coffee, every motion precise. Tosin could feel the tension stretching like wire between them. "About last night," she started. "Was a mistake," he finished, too quickly. The words hit her chest, sharp as glass. She nodded slowly. "Of course." But his eyes betrayed him. Beneath the calm exterior, there was regret, longing, something that refused to stay buried. "I crossed a line," he continued, setting the mug down. "You're under contract. My employee. My sister's best friend. I should have known better." Tosin forced a small smile. "We both should have." He turned toward the window, exhaling. "Let's keep things professional from now on." "Professional," she echoed, even though her voice cracked slightly at the end. He looked at her then, really looked, and for a fleeting second, the mask slipped. His gaze softened, filled with something unspoken and dangerous. Then his phone buzzed, saving them both. He answered sharply, retreating into work mode. "Yes. Move the meeting to 11. I'll handle the report myself." As he spoke, Tosin rose quietly and moved to the counter to set her cup in the sink. His voice lowered again. "I'll see you at the office." When he hung up, she was gone, the faint scent of her perfume the only trace left behind. At Hansang later that morning, professionalism returned like armor. Tosin presented the new campaign draft to the team, her tone crisp, her gestures controlled. Xian Wu sat across from her, silent but alert, eyes betraying nothing. Their gazes met once. Briefly. Too briefly. He nodded. "Good work, Miss Adebayo." "Thank you, sir." The title "sir" had never sounded so cold. When the meeting ended, she gathered her notes quickly, keeping her head down. But as she walked past him, he spoke under his breath, low, meant only for her. "Tosin." She stopped, heart stuttering. He didn't look up, only said, "It wasn't a mistake." Her breath caught, and before she could respond, he was gone, the sound of his footsteps echoing down the corridor like a promise he wasn't supposed to make. By midweek, whispers moved through Hansang Group faster than stock updates. Tosin had learned to tune out gossip, but this time, every murmur seemed to stop when she walked into a room. The smiles were too polite, the eyes lingered too long. Something had changed. She tried to focus on the numbers on her screen, but her mind replayed the morning meeting. Someone had seen them, or at least, thought they had. The night Xian Wu had dropped her off after dinner, a security guard's car had been parked near the gate. Now the office was feeding on speculation. In the executive lounge, two managers whispered over coffee. "They say she stayed at his penthouse for weeks. His sister's friend, right? That's how it always starts. Personal, then professional, then scandal." When the elevator doors opened, both men went silent. Tosin stepped out, her heels confident, her face calm, though her pulse was a storm. In his office, Kim Xian Wu stood by the glass wall overlooking Seoul. The city glowed like polished steel beneath the noon sun, but his focus was elsewhere, the PR team's weekly report lying open on his desk. A line caught his attention. Rumors circulating regarding CEO's personal involvement with external consultant. His jaw tightened. Who approved this line? His assistant stammered. It's just internal chatter, sir. It'll fade. He didn't respond. Just closed the file and said quietly, Bring Miss Adebayo to my office. When Tosin entered, his composure looked unshaken, but she knew better. His hands were too still, his tone too calm. You've heard? He asked. She nodded. Apparently I'm your latest scandal. His eyes flicked up, sharp. They're wrong. Are they? She countered softly. You kissed me, Sian-woo. It wasn't one-sided. He exhaled, the muscles in his jaw flexing. This company eats rumors for breakfast, Tosin. They'll twist anything that looks human. She crossed her arms. Then what do you want me to do? Pretend it never happened. He stepped closer, voice low. I want you to stay professional. I'll handle the rest. By silencing gossip or silencing me? The question cut too close. He didn't answer immediately. His silence was an answer of its own. Tosin's voice trembled, not from fear but frustration. I worked for this position. I earned it. Don't turn me into your secret. Her words hit him harder than she knew. Before he could respond, Hae-rin appeared at the doorway, her expression unreadable. I see the rumors reached upstairs, she said smoothly. Both turned toward her. Hae-rin smiled faintly, eyes darting between them. Careful, little brother. Seoul is a scandal, especially one with your name on it. When she left, the silence that followed was different, heavier, truer. Tosin looked at Sian-woo and said quietly, You can control your company, but not this. He met her gaze. Then I'll control what matters. But as he watched her walk away, Sian-woo knew control was the one thing already slipping through his hands. The night the rumor reached the headlines, Seoul's skyline looked colder than usual. Hansang Group's name trended for all the wrong reasons, a single photo taken at the wrong angle, Kim Sian-woo and Tosin Adebayo entering a car together after midnight. The caption burned beneath it. CEO's secret companion? By morning, damage control had begun. Lawyers drafted statements. PR teams rehearsed denials. But before any of them could reach him, the first person through his office door was Hae-rin. She didn't knock. Close the blinds, she said. He obeyed without question. The air between them was brittle. I told you to stay away from her, she said quietly, almost tired. Sian-woo's shoulders stiffened. You told me to stay away from feelings. There's a difference. Don't play word games with me. She tossed a printed copy of the tabloid article onto his desk. Do you have any idea what this will do to Hansang's image? To hers. He looked at the photo. Tosin caught mid-stride beside him, unaware of the camera flash that would ignite the city. I'll protect her. Hae-rin laughed once, short and bitter. From what? The press? The board? Or from yourself? He turned to her, jaw clenched. This isn't your business. It became my business the moment she became my friend. Her voice cracked for the first time. You think you can separate work from your obsession, but you're dragging her into a storm she doesn't deserve. Obsession, he echoed, the word cutting deep. Is that what you think this is? She met his eyes, calm but trembling. You don't love people, Sian-woo. You manage them. You measure what they cost. That's not love. He went silent, the accusation echoing in the glass-walled room. For a long moment, the city's hum filled the space between them. Finally, he said, She makes me forget the cost. Isn't that the point? Hae-rin's lips parted, then closed again. Her brother never confessed weakness. To hear it now was like seeing a crack in stone. You're serious, she whispered. Yes. Then end it before you destroy her. He shook his head slowly. I've tried. Hae-rin's voice softened, almost pleading. She's not built for this world, Sian-woo. Your world devours kindness. If you care about her, don't make her fight it for you. For a moment, he saw her not as a sister, but as a mirror, both of them trapped in a life shaped by expectation and image. I won't let her be humiliated, he said finally. Not by the company, not by me. Then prove it, Hae-rin said. Do the right thing before it's too late. She left without another word. Sian-woo sat alone, the article staring back at him like judgment. He reached for his phone, his thumb hovering over Tosin's number. He wanted to hear her voice. He wanted to tell her everything. Instead, he He turned off the screen and whispered into the silence. I won't lose her. Not like this. The next morning, the city woke up to chaos. Every news channel, gossip blog, and corporate site flashed the same headline. Hansang Group's CEO accused of affair with foreign consultant. By 8, reporters camped outside the company gates like vultures. By 9, investors were calling for answers. Inside his top-floor office, Kim Si-woo adjusted his tie before the mirror. His reflection was flawless, controlled, polished, cold, but inside, something burned. Tosin's career, her dignity, her peace, all threatened because of him. He wasn't going to let the world tear her apart. Not again. A soft knock came at the door. Rin entered, expression tight. The board wants you to deny it. I know. They'll bury her if you don't. He turned to her, eyes dark but calm. Then they can bury me instead. Her breath caught. You can't. I can, he said firmly, walking past her. And I will. At 10 a.m., the press hall overflowed. Cameras flashed. Microphones pointed like spears. The buzz dimmed when Si-woo stepped up to the podium. He didn't bring lawyers or bodyguards. Just truth and the weight of his decision. Good morning, he began, voice steady. I'm aware of the story circulating about me and Miss Tosin Adebayo, a consultant at Hansang Group. The reporters leaned forward. I won't insult anyone's intelligence by denying what's already evident. Yes, she has been staying at my residence, under my sister's invitation, not mine. And yes, she is someone I respect deeply. Whispers broke out across the room. Someone shouted, So the rumors are true? Si-woo met the sea of cameras with unflinching eyes. The rumors are exaggerated, but if you're asking whether there's something personal between us... He paused, a faint muscle twitching in his jaw. There is. The room exploded in noise, shouts, flashes, chaos. Si-woo raised a hand, silencing them. I take full responsibility for any distraction this has caused. Miss Adebayo's role at Hansang remains professional and her work exceptional. Any attempt to harass or discredit her will be dealt with personally. Someone shouted, Are you in love with her, Mr. Kim? He hesitated only a second. Then quietly, Yes. The world seemed to stop. Every flash froze midair. Rin, standing near the exit, covered her mouth in shock. He continued, voice low but clear. That's all I have to say. Hansang will issue an official statement regarding our operations. As for my personal life, this is my truth, and I will not hide it. Then he stepped down, ignoring the chaos behind him. Tosin watched the live broadcast from her apartment, hand trembling around her phone. She begged him not to draw attention, not to fight for her in public. But now, seeing him stand there, calm, proud, unafraid, something in her chest cracked open. Tears slid down her cheeks as the words replayed in her mind, yes. There is. And I won't hide it. For the first time, she realized the man who lived by rules had just broken every one of them for her. By noon, Seoul was roaring. Stock tickers scrolled red across every screen. The board of Hansang Group had convened an emergency session within an hour of Si-woo's confession. The building itself felt different. Too quiet, too watchful. Employees spoke in whispers. Executives moved like shadows. Tosin had not left her apartment. Her phone had not stopped vibrating. Calls from journalists, former colleagues, even distant family in Nigeria. But the one call she feared the most still hadn't come. When it finally did, the name on the screen made her heart stop. Kim Si-woo. She answered after a long breath. Why did you do it? His voice was calm, the kind that hid exhaustion. Because they were already tearing you apart. At least this way, the fire hits me first. You've jeopardized everything, she said, standing by the window. Your company, your family, your name. He was silent for a moment. You think I care about my name more than yours? Maybe you should. Her voice cracked, betraying her. Because I can't be the reason you lose everything. Then don't hang up, he said softly. Don't run from me. Her eyes stung. You should go handle your board, Si-woo. They won't forgive this. Inside the boardroom, the air was smoke and fury. The chairman slammed his fist on the table. A public confession? Are you out of your mind? Si-woo sat at the head, composed but cold. You hired me to lead, not to lie. I won't build this company on silence. Your personal life is not the company's concern, another director snapped. You embarrassed Hansang on global television. Miss Adebayo is not a scandal, he said evenly. She's a consultant whose work elevated our brand. If this board wishes to remove me, I'll step down, but I won't apologize for the truth. Murmurs filled the room. Half the board looked outraged, the other half looked afraid. Resignation won't erase the damage, one elder warned. The investors want stability. They're demanding a press statement without her name attached. Xian Wu's jaw tightened. No. You're protecting her over your position? He met their eyes one by one. Yes. The silence that followed was volcanic. Someone finally said, then we'll vote. That night, Xian Wu stood alone on the rooftop terrace of the Hansang Tower, the city lights burning below him. He had faced billion-1 negotiations without blinking, but this felt heavier. He heard footsteps behind him. Tosin. She stepped closer, the wind tugging at her coat. I saw the broadcast replay, she said quietly. You were brave. He turned, tired but soft. I was reckless. She shook her head. You were human. He reached for her hand, hesitant. The board wants me out. Her chest tightened. Then let me go before you lose more. His grip only tightened. I already lost control. I'm not losing you too. For a long time, they stood beneath the Seoul skyline, two people surrounded by a world that wanted them apart. And yet, in the heart of that chaos, Xian Wu realized something terrifying and true. He'd never felt freer. The next morning, the boardroom was silent except for the clicking of a single pen. Every executive sat in tension, their eyes fixed on the empty chair at the head of the table. At exactly 9 o'clock, Kim Xian Wu walked in. No entourage, no lawyer, just a folder in his hand and a calmness that felt heavier than anger. Mr. Kim, the chairman began, this is an internal disciplinary review, but given the scale of your actions, the outcome is inevitable. Xian Wu nodded once. Then let's make it quick. You publicly admitted to a personal relationship with a company consultant, another director said. You compromised Hansang's image, exposed us to speculation, and... I told the truth, Xian Wu interrupted, voice steady. That's all. The truth doesn't pay shareholders, came the cold reply. He placed the folder on the table. This is my formal resignation. Effective immediately. Gasps rippled through the room. The chairman leaned back, stunned. You're walking away from a legacy your father built. Xian Wu's gaze didn't waver. No, I'm walking away from a prison he built. The room froze. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, the chairman exhaled. You're making a mistake, Xian Wu. He gave a small, almost wistful smile. Maybe, but it's mine to make. He turned to leave, pausing only once at the door. Hansang will survive. It always does. But I won't survive pretending anymore. Outside, reporters crowded the steps, shouting questions. Xian Wu ignored them, stepping into the rain as cameras flashed. The storm that had begun as rumor was now a reckoning. He didn't flinch. Across the street, under a black umbrella, Tosin stood waiting. Her eyes widened as he approached, soaked but unbroken. What did you do? She asked softly, though she already knew. He stopped before her, rain dripping from his hair. I resigned. Her lips parted. You gave up everything. He shook his head. No, Tosin. I finally chose something for myself. She wanted to be angry, wanted to tell him he was foolish, reckless, selfish, but all that came out was a trembling whisper. You didn't have to do this for me. I didn't, he said, stepping closer. I did it because of you. Her heart caught between fear and wonder. And what happens now? He smiled faintly, rain running down his face. Now I find out who I am when I'm not hiding behind a company logo. For a moment, the world was quiet, just the sound of rain and the soft rhythm of two hearts trying to sync after chaos. Tosin raised her umbrella, covering them both. Then we start over. He looked at her, this woman who had walked into his house and undone years of silence with one fearless smile, and nodded. Together. Above them, the storm began to fade, sunlight breaking through the clouds. For the first time in years, Kim Xian Wu wasn't thinking about power or image or legacy. He was thinking about her, and the life waiting beyond the glass towers of Seoul. 3 days after Kim Seon-woo's resignation, Hansang Group began to bleed. The press called it the empire without its pulse. Stocks slipped, partners froze contracts, and even the senior directors, men who once sneered at his defiance, looked suddenly very small in their leather chairs. By the end of the week, the boardroom lights burned long past midnight. Reports stacked like unanswered prayers. Someone finally said it aloud. "We need him back." At that moment, Seon-woo sat in a quiet cafe in Gangnam, sleeves rolled, notebook open but untouched. He had expected relief. Instead, he felt the kind of stillness that borders on restlessness. Across from him, Tosin watched him over her cup of ginger tea. "You miss it," she said softly. He glanced up. "Miss what?" "The fire," she replied. "You built that company from your own discipline. It's still part of you." Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. Haeran's name lit the screen. He hesitated, then answered. "The board's collapsing," his sister said. "They're calling an emergency vote. They want you in that seat tomorrow morning." Silence. Then Tosin's voice, calm, grounded, broke through. "Go." He frowned. "I thought you wanted me free of them." "I wanted you free of what they turned you into," she said. "But maybe freedom doesn't mean running. Maybe it means returning differently." He studied her face, those fearless eyes, the curve of her lips steady with faith. "And if they try to use you to hurt me again?" She smiled faintly. "Then they'll learn that I'm not decoration in your story. I'm part of your strategy." The next morning, cameras crowded the Hansang Tower lobby. When Seon-woo entered, every head turned. No press statement, no grand speech, just the echo of his footsteps and the composure that had always terrified his rivals. In the boardroom, his chair sat empty like a confession. "Gentlemen," he began, voice calm but cutting, "I hear you've been busy." The chairman shifted uncomfortably. "Hansang has suffered without your direction. We request your immediate return, under full authority." Seon-woo's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. "On one condition." Murmurs filled the room. He laid a file on the table, Tosin's marketing reform plan, the one they dismissed weeks before. "She becomes executive creative director." No debates. The room went still. "An outsider," one man barked. "A visionary," Seon-woo corrected. "You wanted results. She's the reason we'll have them." No one argued. They couldn't afford to. That evening, Tosin stood in the glass hallway outside his office, watching him sign the reinstatement papers. He looked up, a small, unguarded smile curving his lips. "Back where you belong," she said. He rose, walking toward her, the city's sunset bleeding gold behind him. "No," he murmured, brushing his thumb against her hand. "We're back where we belong." Their reflections merged in the window, two silhouettes, one legacy reborn. By the time dawn stretched across the Seoul skyline, the Hansang Tower was already awake again. For the first time in weeks, the building buzzed, not with fear, but with purpose. Kim Seon-woo had returned, and beside him, the woman the board once dismissed now stood at the center of every strategy meeting. Tosin Adebayo's name was on everyone's lips. The CEO's muse, the creative mind behind the comeback. Some whispered admiration, others envy, but no one dared underestimate her anymore. That morning, the executive team gathered in the glass boardroom, tension hanging like mist. Tosin stood beside Seon-woo, her hair in its signature sleek bun, eyes bright with quiet confidence. She began the presentation with calm authority. "Hansang doesn't need reinvention, it needs reconnection. This brand isn't just a company, it's a heartbeat that forgot how to feel." Her voice carried like music, measured, clear, commanding. Behind her, the digital screens shifted through images of Hansang's new direction, empathy-driven campaigns, inclusive partnerships, transparent leadership. As she spoke, Seon-woo leaned back in his chair, watching her, not as her boss, but as a man in awe. Her confidence radiated. Her words reignited a spark in the very place that had nearly broken him. When she finished, the room was silent. Then the chairman, the same man who once doubted her, nodded slowly. "Approved." Tosin smiled faintly, glancing at Seon-woo. He returned it, the corners of his mouth softening in a rare expression that only she could pull from him. Hours later, in his office, he found her at the window overlooking the city. "You handle them better than I ever did," he said, setting down 2 cups of coffee. She turned, a teasing light in her eyes. Maybe they just needed someone who speaks their language. Emotion, not ego. He chuckled. Then maybe I've been tone deaf for years. Tosin sipped her coffee, studying him. His sleeves were rolled, tie loosened, a rare trace of peace softening his face. "You've changed, Sian-woo. You're lighter." He looked at her, the reflection of soul flickering in his gaze. "You gave me something the company never could, Reason." Their silence was warm this time. No distance, no restraint, just understanding. By evening, the first Hansang campaign under Tosin's direction went live. Billboards lit up across the city, rebuilding trust, restoring purpose. Below the tagline was Hansang's logo, clean, simple, renewed. From the rooftop terrace, Sian-woo watched the lights flicker across the skyline. Tosin joined him, her voice soft. "You see that? That's not just your name shining anymore." He glanced at her. "It's ours." She smiled, leaning into his shoulder. For the first time, the city didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like a beginning. In the reflection of Seoul's golden hour, they looked less like CEO and consultant, and more like what they had become. Partners in power, equals in heart. 3 weeks after Hansang's relaunch, the city was humming with praise. The media called it the Seoul Renaissance, a comeback no one thought possible. But as every empire rises, so does envy. The board had invited a new investor, Park Duhan, a venture capitalist with a perfect smile and a reputation for turning companies into gold mines or graveyards. He had money, charm, and a dangerous curiosity about Tosin Adebayo. The first meeting began in the top-floor conference suite. Sian-woo entered first, crisp in a dark charcoal suit, composure restored, power back in his voice. Moments later, Duhan arrived, tall, striking, confidence radiating like heat. And when Tosin stepped in behind Sian-woo, Duhan's eyes sharpened instantly. "So this is the legendary consultant," he said with a half-smile, extending his hand. "Your work saved Hansang. I've read your entire marketing proposal twice." Tosin smiled politely, shaking his hand. "I didn't save it alone." He glanced at Sian-woo. "Yes, but inspiration has to come from somewhere." The tension in the room tightened, invisible but sharp. Sian-woo's jaw flexed. He spoke evenly. "We're here to discuss partnership, not poetry." Duhan laughed lightly. "Of course, CEO Kim. Business first." But as the meeting progressed, every compliment Duhan gave Tosin carried a layer of intent. He questioned her strategies with too much interest, praised her with too much warmth. She noticed. So did Sian-woo. When it ended, Duhan lingered. "I'd like to discuss the digital branch personally, Miss Adebayo. Over dinner, perhaps." Before Tosin could respond, Sian-woo's voice sliced through. "That won't be necessary. We make decisions together." Duhan smiled and faltered. "Of course. Still, if you ever need fresh ideas, my line is always open." He left, leaving a faint trace of cologne and challenge behind. In the elevator, Tosin crossed her arms. "You were jealous." He didn't deny it. "I was protective." Her lips curved. "Same difference." He turned to her, eyes softening. "He's not interested in Hansang. He's interested in you." She raised a brow. "And what if I can handle him?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Then I'll enjoy watching you do it." Her laugh came quiet, teasing. "Careful, Mr. Kim." That almost sounded like admiration. It was, he admitted. Their gazes locked, warm, charged, unguarded, until the elevator chimed open. That night, Tosin worked late in her office. The city lights poured through the glass, painting her face in gold. She didn't notice Sian-woo standing in the doorway until he spoke. "Duhan called again," he said quietly. "Wants another meeting." She smiled faintly. "Then let him. Let's show him how unshakable partnership looks." He moved closer, eyes tracing her face. "You mean war?" "I mean teamwork," she whispered. He brushed a finger along her jaw, voice a low promise. "Then we fight together." Outside, Seoul shimmered, alive, unpredictable, and watching 2 people who had just become unstoppable. The following week, Park Do-hyun's charm turned into strategy. He wasn't just attending meetings anymore, he was shaping them. He praised Tosin publicly, quoted her campaigns and interviews, and smiled through every boardroom debate as if he were harmless. But beneath that smile was calculation, and everyone could feel it, especially Si-Woo. The morning meeting began with a tension you could taste. Duhan stood by the digital screen, sleeves rolled, energy magnetic. "Our next step," he said smoothly, "is global expansion. Miss Adebayo's campaign will serve as the face of Hansang's new international branch." The board murmured approvingly. Tosin's eyes flicked to Si-Woo. He sat still, unreadable. Duhan continued, "However, for efficiency, I propose a new division, independent from our current leadership structure. A creative wing under my supervision." The words dropped like stones. It was a coup disguised as progress. Tosin froze, realizing his plan. Si-Woo leaned forward, voice low but deadly calm. "You want to cut my leadership out of the company I built?" Duhan smiled pleasantly. "Of course not. I just want innovation to have more freedom. Surely, you wouldn't stand in the way of Miss Adebayo's vision." The boardroom turned to Tosin. The weight of their gazes pressed against her like heat. Her pulse raced, but her expression didn't waver. "Innovation doesn't need a new wing," she said clearly. "It needs trust. Hansang's strength comes from unity, not division." The room went still. Duhan's smile faltered for the first time. "You'd rather follow orders than lead?" Tosin met his gaze evenly. "I'd rather lead with someone than against him." Si-Woo's eyes softened, pride flickering behind his calm. Duhan's jaw flexed, but he covered it with another empty grin. "Understood. Then perhaps we'll revisit this later." When the meeting ended, he left without another word, but the air he left behind was sharp with challenge. Later, in Si-Woo's office, Tosin stood by the window, arms folded. "He's not finished." "No," Si-Woo said, walking toward her. "He's testing how far he can get before we push back." She looked at him, eyes steady. "Then push." He studied her, a slow smile forming. "I love when you say that." Tosin smirked, but her tone stayed serious. "He'll use charm, not force. He'll try to get the board, and the press, on his side. We need to stay one step ahead." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Then we move together. Always." For a moment, their faces were close, too close for business, too charged for words. "Together," she echoed, her voice barely a whisper. That night, Duhan stood in his car overlooking the Hansang Tower, his reflection fractured in the window. He muttered to himself, "Every king falls, no matter how loyal his queen." He lifted a glass of wine, eyes narrowing. "Let's see how long their empire lasts." And under Seoul's glittering skyline, the next battle had just begun. Rain fell in steady sheets over Seoul, painting the glass of Hansang Tower with streaks of silver. Inside, the building pulsed with whispers. Rumors moved faster than memos. Someone was leaking information, and every trail seemed to lead back to one person. Tosin Adebayo. It started small. A misplaced report, a confidential proposal that ended up in the hands of a competitor. But when the company's internal audit traced the email route, it pointed to Tosin's system. The board erupted. "She's the only one with access to both departments," one director shouted. "This is sabotage," another hissed. Park Do-hyun watched from the end of the table, quiet satisfaction flickering behind his concerned mask. "Let's not rush judgment," he said smoothly. But perhaps it's time CEO Kim reconsidered who he trusts most. When Si-Woo received the news, he didn't believe it. Couldn't. He'd seen that look in Tosin's eyes too many times. Loyal, unshaken, real. He stormed into her office. "Someone used your credentials to send classified files." Tosin blinked, stunned. "That's impossible." "I didn't." "I know," he cut in quickly. "But the board thinks otherwise. They're demanding a suspension pending investigation." She stood slowly, voice trembling but steady. "You believe me, don't you?" He hesitated, just long enough for the silence to hurt. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "Say it, Si-Woo. You think I could betray you?" He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "Tosin, I don't think." "You hesitated," she said softly. "That's enough." He closed his eyes. "It's not doubt, it's fear. Fear that I can't protect you from them. She exhaled shakily. Then start protecting me. Don't let them destroy what we built. That evening, the board held an emergency meeting. Tosin sat across from them, chin high, expression calm despite the murmurs. Duhan leaned forward, voice dripping with false sympathy. We all make mistakes, Miss Adebayo. Perhaps you got too comfortable with access you shouldn't have. Her gaze didn't flinch. And perhaps you're too comfortable blaming others for your schemes. The room fell silent. Cian Wu entered mid-sentence, eyes like steel. Enough! He dropped a file on the table. The leak came from an external server, traced to a subsidiary owned by one of our investors. Duhan's smile cracked. You're accusing me? No, Cian Wu said coldly. I'm exposing you. He turned the screen toward the board, data logs, timestamps, and Duhan's digital signature. Gasps erupted. Tosin's lips parted, relief flooding her face. Duhan stood, mask slipping completely. You think this changes anything? Without me, your empire crumbles again. Cian Wu stepped closer, voice low. Hansang doesn't run on fear anymore. It runs on faith. Duhan stormed out, the echo of his shoes fading into thunder. Tosin exhaled, finally looking at Cian Wu. He met her eyes, guilt heavy in his voice. I should have trusted you sooner. She smiled faintly through tears. You just did. That's what saved me. Seoul woke to sunlight the next morning, the kind that cut clean through glass and rain, washing away the night's chaos. Inside Hansang Tower, the air was different, lighter, hopeful. Park Do-hyun's resignation letter had gone viral before sunrise. The board issued a public apology, and Kim Cian-woo, the man they once tried to silence, was now the story of redemption splashed across every news headline. The CEO who chose integrity over power, but behind every headline was the woman who made it possible. Tosin Adebayo stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of Cian-woo's office, her reflection framed by the golden skyline. Her hair was in its perfect sleek bun, her posture composed, her expression calm, but her eyes shimmered with something deeper. Relief. Cian-woo entered quietly, sleeves rolled, tie undone, holding 2 cups of coffee. I owe you a lifetime of apologies, he said, setting one beside her. You owe me breakfast first, she teased softly, her lips curving into the smile that had once rebuilt his courage. He chuckled, the sound lighter than it had been in months. You're impossible. And you're predictable, she replied, turning to face him fully. Every time the world tries to break you, you rebuild it stronger. He looked at her for a long moment, really looked. No, he said finally, we rebuilt it. You and I. Their silence wasn't empty. It was peace. Later that day, the entire Hansang staff gathered in the main hall. Reporters lined the walls, flashes blinking like stars. Cian-woo took the stage, calm and steady, the perfect portrait of leadership reborn. Tosin stood beside him, every inch his equal. Hansang Group, he began, voice carrying across the room, was never meant to be a symbol of power. It was meant to be a symbol of purpose. We forgot that once. But today, thanks to courage, unity, and one extraordinary woman, he glanced at Tosin, we remember. Applause thundered through the hall. Tosin's cheeks flushed, but she held his gaze with quiet pride. He turned back to the crowd. From this day forward, Hansang stands for transparency, equality, and integrity. Not just because it's good business, but because it's who we are. The cameras caught everything, the strength in his stance, the sincerity in his eyes, and the unmistakable way he looked at her. That evening, when the building emptied, Cian-woo found Tosin on the rooftop terrace, watching the city lights come alive. Do you ever get tired of Seoul? He asked. She smiled, eyes glimmering. Not when it looks like this. He stepped closer, his hand finding hers. Tosin Adebayo, he murmured, voice low but sure, you didn't just save Hansang. You saved me. She leaned against him, the skyline glowing around them. You just needed reminding of who you were. He tilted her chin gently, their eyes meeting beneath the fading sun. Then remind me forever. And when their lips met, soft, slow, certain, the city below erupted in lights, as if Seoul itself had been waiting for this moment. The empire wasn't just restored. It was reborn, in love, trust, and forever after. Thank you so much for staying with us till the very end of the story. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear the lessons you learned and your thoughts on how we can continue improving to give you the very best. Here at Munlyt Stories, every tale is crafted with passion, care, and dedication. Our mission is simple: to entertain, inspire, and connect us all across cultures and hearts. So, keep the conversation alive in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Till next time, we are Munlyt Stories, bringing you amazing tales that touch hearts and spark imaginations. Stay blessed, stay inspired. See you in the next story.